Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of this video without any interruptions, and then I'll go back and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go. There's nothing wrong with your audio. This agency, for whatever reason, doesn't have anybody talking before the body camera footage starts to play. They just throw up slides for you to read.
Hey, how's it going?
What is it?
Hi.
What is it?
Are you Yanli?
Yes.
Okay, here's a notice to evict. Okay?
What?
It's your notice for... Put the knife down right now or I'm gonna put your knife down. Put the knife down.
You
Put the knife down right now. Put the knife down right now.
How do I know you are an intruder?
15 out of 5, one at gunpoint. Code cover. Put the gun down, ma'am. I'm gonna shoot you. Put the gun down.
How do I know
Put the gun down or I will shoot you.
Try to enter my apartment.
15 Adam 5, code cover. One at gunpoint with a knife. Put the gun down right now.
You put your gun.
Put the gun down right now. Now, drop the knife.
I'm holding a knife. You are
Drop the knife, ma'am.
You drop your
You
gun.
will get shot. If you come at me with that knife, I will shoot you.
I'm not afraid.
Do you understand that?
I'm not coming.
Okay, I will shoot you. You understand? Put the knife down.
How did you get in?
Put the knife
How
down.
did you get into my building?
Put the knife down.
How did you get into my building?
I walked in. Put down the knife right
Where
now.
is the front desk?
Put down the knife right
How
now.
do you allow
Ma'am,
you to get
you
in?
will be shot. Do you understand
How
that?
do you allow you to
Put
get
down
in?
the gun or you will be shot.
How do you allow you to get in?
Drop the knife.
You are safe.
Drop the knife.
You are safe.
Ma'am, drop the knife.
Where is your badge?
You will be shot. Do you understand
Where
that?
is your badge?
Ma'am, shh, drop the knife.
You have not even show your badge.
Don't-
And you poor guy.
Just drop the knife.
Where
Don't
is
make
the
me
badge?
shoot you. Drop the knife, please. Don't make me do this.
No, I'm not dropping.
Drop
Where
the
is the badge?
knife now.
Hey,
Ma'am,
there is a fake police over
I
here.
am not a fake police
It's
officer.
funny, it's
Drop,
funny.
drop the knife. Drop the.
Want me to call building the guys?
15 out of 5. She's barricaded in 503.
Miss Lee, Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department. Can you open the door, please? I know, but
I got you.
no. Okay. Hey, this is the Sheriff's Department with the San Diego Police Department. We're both here. I need you to put the knife down and open the door. We're not intruders, we're the police.
Moving up.
Tell me when you're ready. Miss Lee, can you hear me?
It's dark. Show me your hands. Where you at? Where you at?
Sheriff Department! Hands! Let me see your hands!
Come on with your hands up. Come on with your hands up. Come on with your hands up.
Let me see your hands!
Beanbag, beanbag, beanbag. Put your hands up. Come here. Get down. Get down. Drop the note. Drop the note.
Back up!
I got stabbed.
Start. Show me your hands. Where you at? Where you at? Start.
Anybody hurt? Anybody hit? I got stabbed!
Miss Lee, can you hear me?
Start. Show me your hands. Where you at? Where you at?
Sheriff Department!
I'm holding. Go.
Hands! Let me see your hands!
Come on with your hands up. Come on with your hands up.
Dog!
Come on with your hands up.
Dog! See your hands!
What about the dog? Beanbag, beanbag, beanbag. Put your hands up.
Make a hole! Make a hole!
Make a hole. Make a hole.
Oh shit! I got stabbed!
Get us medics now. Get us medics now.
Anybody hurt?
Get us medics now.
Anybody hit? I got stabbed!
What's on again?
Moving up.
15 Amsterdam 2, we're gonna make Andrew.
Miss Lee, can you hear me?
Start. Show me your hands. Where you at? Where you at? Sheriff Department.
Back bedroom.
Move into the apartment so there's no way to get in.
Make a hole! Make a hole! Make a hole! Make a hole!
Watch the dog!
Back it up! Back up! Back up! Back up!
Oh shit! I got stabbed!
Get the ambulance! Get the ambulance! Get that knife out of her knife! Get the ambulance!
All right, so let's get into this. This is a... Oh, crap. So this deputy is going to serve an eviction at a condo here. And evictions can be for more than just one thing. The thing that most people think about is failure to pay rent. And that's possible in this scenario with COVID and everything that's occurred. It's possible that the woman lost her job and she wasn't able to pay rent. Or it's even possible that she had a job and she was working, but because some of the things that got passed, landlords were not able to evict people during the COVID. And it could have been a simple matter that she just refused to pay rent during this time frame. And the landowner was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Have a tenant that's not paying rent, and the courts will not facilitate any evictions. That has happened a lot all across the country. Now, I'm not saying that's what this case is. I don't know why an eviction is being served on her, but that's a possibility. Although a lot of the evictions have to deal with failure to pay rent, it can also be for other things. Breach of contract for the rented space, such as a person being a nuisance, always constantly playing loud music at night, disturbing the neighbors, destroying property, etc. So there's other things that you can evict a person for. It doesn't have to be rent. And no idea what this woman's being evicted for, but she's being evicted. So this deputy, he is with the sheriff's office in California and works under the Court Services Bureau. Now, I am not familiar with how California does things. Now, although I don't know exactly how that tree chart looks, so to speak, like where he falls at under the sheriff's office, in what kind of capacity, other than he's Court Services Bureau. So here in Kentucky, if sheriff's office personnel are in the court, they're known as bailiffs. And outside of that, you're just a deputy. So the people in the courthouse are bailiffs. The people outside the courthouse are just deputies. They're either regular road deputies, or some of the sheriff's offices here can utilize what's called special deputies. And then, of course, there's your non-sworn personnel like office clerks and dispatchers. From the road patrol, the regular deputies, some of them may be tasked with serving papers. But other than that, there's not any like specialty divisions that deal with just court stuff. It's just the bailiffs. So California, I don't know how that plays out. I mean, I would imagine that there still has to be bailiffs within the courts down there. And this Court Services Bureau, it could just be that since they generate so much civil paperwork, like summons and subpoenas and evictions and all that shit, it could be that they just have so much of that they have a division under operations where, you know, the regular road deputies would also fall under. They also probably have this Bureau of Court Services or whatever to deal with all that. And these people are regular deputies, just like the ones working the road. But instead of working the road, they're just serving papers. I'm assuming that's probably what's going on here. But I'm not really 100% sure. If anybody knows, I would really like it if you would post that information in the comments. Be interesting information to find out. But he comes in and he's got the paperwork here. Now, I'll play this segment as he gets to this door here.
Hey, how's it going?
What is it?
Hi.
What is it?
Are you Yanli?
Ah, yes.
Okay, here's a notice to evict. Okay?
What?
It's your notice for... Put the knife down right now or I'm going to...
So she opens the door. He asks who she is, and she says yeah, and he hands her the paperwork. She's served at this point. The problem now is that he notices she has a meat cleaver.
Put your knife down. Put the knife down. Put the knife down right now. Okay, here's a notice to evict. Okay?
What?
It's your notice for... Put the knife down right now or I'm going to... Put your knife down. Put the knife down.
You put
Put the knife down right now.
Put your gun
Put the knife down right now.
How do I know you are an intruder?
Put the knife down right now.
How do I know you are an intruder?
How do I know you're not an intruder? Well, first of all, he hasn't come into your apartment yet, so he's not an intruder. Her being served the eviction means that this is not a surprise to her. At least it should not be a surprise to her. To get to this point where a sheriff's deputy is going to be serving the official notice, there's had to be some build-up to this. The landlords had to have been making contact with her, sending her notices of stuff. Hey, do this, or we're going to evict. She had to have gotten paperwork saying, hey, there's going to be a hearing about you being evicted. If you don't want to be evicted, if you want to plead your case, come to court. Otherwise, we're going to rule in favor of the landlord. There's been a build-up to this. There's no way that she is completely oblivious to the fact that she is going to be evicted. Very unlikely. So at this point, I think she's just trying to stall and cause problems. And if you remember, one of the slides said that the manager and the maintenance guy approached and told them that the day before, when they were working on some plumbing stuff, she threatened them with a knife. So naturally, I guess, people wouldn't be happy with the fact that they're being evicted. I wouldn't like it. It would probably piss me off. But she knew what she was doing was wrong and was going to get her evicted. Unless this is something where a new person has bought the whole building and they're starting to evict everyone. I mean, that's a possibility, but it's a big building. I don't see that one happening. I would say she's probably done stuff to lead up to this, to force them to evict her. And she's pissed off. She's acting out. It's not the right way. But for whatever reason, she has decided to start acting this way. Is she acting in a way that makes me think that she is suicidal, that she wants to do a suicide by police. Not really, not entirely. Like, if she wanted to, she could have come at him very easily. All she had to do was just step through the door, raise that thing, and come at him, and he would have popped her. I don't think she's suicidal. I think she's throwing a tantrum, trying to get her way, trying to be difficult. And then saying what she said. How do I know you're not an intruder? Just trying to prolong this whole process. She probably has nowhere to go.
$15 out of 5, one at gunpoint. Code cover. Put the gun down, ma'am. I'm gonna shoot you. Put the gun down.
How do I know?
Put the gun down or I will shoot you.
Try to enter my apartment.
15 Adam 5, code cover. One at gunpoint with a knife. Put
Call
the gun down right now.
You open your gun.
Put the gun down right now. Now, drop the knife.
I'm holding a life. You
Drop the knife.
So, obviously he's stressed out, right? This woman's got a knife. This is the recipe for an officer-involved shooting. She could stab him. So naturally, he's going to be a little bit nervous. So he's slipping his words up. He's telling her to drop the gun, but she don't have a gun. She has a knife, and she actually calls him out on it. She's like, "I'm holding a knife." Some of these interactions are actually, I mean, they're interesting. I wouldn't say fully funny, but there are some comical moments in some of these interactions, and the fact that she has to correct him and say, "I'm holding a knife." It's like, all right, okay. Technically, whatever, but you get what I'm saying.
Ma'am,
Your job.
you will get shot if you come at me with that knife. I will shoot you.
I'm not afraid.
Do you understand that?
I'm not coming.
Okay, I will shoot you. You understand? Put the knife down. Put the knife down.
Is there something else he could have done at this moment? Potentially. While maintaining lethal cover with a one-handed grip, it's possible that he could have reached down to his belt with his non-dominant hand and pulled his OC can out and start spraying her from his position right there. It's possible that, depending on his taser placement, he could have reached down with his non-dominant hand and got his taser out and deployed taser on her. Would those have been 100% effective? I don't know. If he had reached down for his OC while still holding lethal cover, brought it up, aimed it at her, and sprayed, and got her in the face really good, she could have simply stepped back from the door and slammed it shut, like she did, or like she ends up doing, and then go in there and wash it out, and they still would have had to come in after her. She could have charged forward at him, being all pissed off now, and it would have led to him popping her. Or it could have led to her instantly dropping that knife and both hands going up to her face and eyes and screaming, and then that allowing him to step forward, grab her, and yank her ass out in that hallway, slam her down, and cuff her. Taser. Could he have deployed taser on her? Yeah. She could have fell backwards after achieving NMI, and then that would have caused the door to close, and he would have to very quickly step forward and catch that door before it shut all the way. If not, then the door would have shut, and if it locks automatically, then he's on one side of the door and she's on the other, and she's going to get back up again. And the closing of the door could have broken the wires. She could fall forward and still be holding on to the knife. And that pain from the taser could have motivated her to let go of it. And he could have cuffed her, and it would have been an end with it. Or the taser could have been ineffective due to being so close, probes not achieve NMI, and she could have charged at him, and then he'd have to pop her. I don't think it's wrong that he didn't try any less lethal choice. He's by himself. She's got a knife, a big one at that. And it's always best to have a good two-handed grip on your pistol when providing lethal cover. Once you go down to a one-handed grip, your accuracy diminishes. So I don't blame him at all for not trying one of those less lethal options. He had to meet deadly physical force with deadly physical force in this instance. But could he have gone to one of those? It's plausible.
You got into my building.
Put the knife down.
How did you get into my building?
I walked in. Put down the knife right
Where
now.
is the front desk?
Put down the knife right
How
now.
do you think I'm
Ma'am,
allowed to
you will be shot. Do you understand
How
that?
do you think I'm allowed to
Put
get
down
in?
the gun or you will be shot.
How do you think I'm allowed to get in?
Drop the knife.
You are safe.
Drop the knife.
You are safe.
Ma'am, drop the knife.
Where is your badge?
You will be shot. Do you understand
Where
that?
is your badge?
Ma'am, shh, drop the knife.
You have not even show your badge.
Don't-
And you pull a gun.
Just drop the knife.
Where
Don't
is
make
the
me shoot
badge?
you. Drop the knife, please. Don't make me do this.
No, I'm not dropping.
Drop
Where
the
is the badge?
knife now.
Hey,
Ma'am,
there is a fake police officer.
I am not a fake police
It's
officer.
funny, it's
Drop,
funny.
drop the knife. Drop the. 15 out of 5. She's barricaded in 503.
So here we are at 2038 15 Zulu.
15 out of 5. She's barricaded in 503.
Miss Lee,
And now at 2046. So a little bit of time has elapsed before this supervisor has gotten here. They talk to her, or at least he talks to her, trying to get her to come out. Of
Sheriff's
course, she just
Department.
continues to yell at them and is uncooperative.
Okay. I need you.
So 2047. It is now 2126. So they were out there for a very long period of time, talking to her through this door.
Open up.
Tell me when you're ready. Miss Lee, can
Where you at? Sheriff Department!
It's dark.
So here's the camera view from this officer with the less than lethal shotgun.
Dark. Show me your hand.
This is a shotgun that is designated for less lethal purposes only.
Miss Lee, can you hear me?
It's dark.
And you can tell that it's designated for less lethal purposes only because it has a colored pump on it and a colored stock. Typically, when you see a 12 gauge shotgun that has a brightly colored stock and a brightly colored pump on it, it is designated as a less than lethal shotgun. And you are only meant to put less than lethal munitions through it. That way you don't make a mistake and grab a real shotgun thinking it has less lethal in it, aiming at someone, expecting a beanbag to come out, but you end up putting a slug in them. The beanbag is just a cloth sack with little pellets in it, and it's just meant to hurt. I don't understand why the point man is a less lethal going into this environment where a person has a deadly physical weapon and has threatened people with a deadly physical weapon. Realistically, someone with a lethal weapon should have gone in first. That way you can meet deadly force with deadly force. I would have preferred if someone with a rifle or a lethal shotgun would have gone in first. But instead, he goes in. He has a forehand light on this less lethal, but he does not activate it. Granted, there is some ambient light coming in through here, but it's dark back in through here, and they even say the lights are off, so it's going to be a low light. I think that he should have activated the light and at least shine it into her face. That way it makes it harder for her to see towards them and exactly what's going on.
Show me your hands. Where you at?
Where you at? Sheriff Corbin!
Come out with your hands.
Of course, the sling gets in the way.
Come out with your hands up. Come out with your hands up. Beanbag, beanbag, beanbag. Put your hands up. Come here. Get down.
He does not get the desired effect. He fires multiple impact munitions at her. Clearly has no result. She still charges forward at him. Now this isn't the greatest footage to see because you don't see a whole lot, but you do see it from him as the point man perspective.
Where you at? Where you at?
They've already gone in.
Hey, go home, hey, go home, hey, go home.
So the guy with the 12 gauge less lethal is leading the front. He is way out there without any lethal cover whatsoever. His only lethal cover is right here, and his gun is pointed down at the floor. Immediately behind the 12 gauge is a pepper ball gun. And then here's a dog, and then here's another apparent canine handler that doesn't have a dog, but he doesn't even appear to have his gun out. There is a serious lack of lethal cover in this environment. Someone with a lethal weapon should have been up here up front, being able to provide that lethal cover before she could have ever pushed on them like this, closed the distance, and stabbed one of them. This is a failure right here, in my opinion. This has been done wrong. From the sounds, when I listen to it and play it multiple times, I don't think I ever hear the pepper ball gun go off. So she has taken some 12 gauge beanbags, or at least had some fired at her. Nothing has happened. The guy with the pepper ball gun could have been shooting up into the door frame there, potentially. Again, that's of course going to cause capsaicin powder to be in the air, and they're going to be in there. But they must be planning for it because he's got the pepper ball gun, right? Once this 12 gauge fails and she starts to charge, realistically, if lethal cover was up there, they should have started shooting. But since it's not, as soon as she started the charge, he should have just started lighting her ass up with his pepper ball gun. And because it is now a deadly force scenario where she is charging at them with a knife, it would have been perfectly appropriate for him to direct the fire to her face. Although that would potentially become lethal, it's okay because this is now a deadly force scenario. If he had a rifle in his hand, he would have complete legal justification in shooting her in the face with the rifle. But he doesn't have a rifle. All he has is a pepper ball gun. So as she started the charge forward, it would have been perfectly acceptable, in my opinion, for him to start shooting the pepper ball gun. And if he shot her in the face with it, so be it. He backs away. So when she charges forward, he completely backs away and goes to this open living room area. You see him back off toward this way. So this guy doesn't really ever do anything but stand around and take up space. Alright, so there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Alright, so you can see that she is trying to ram this knife into him. She's already hit him with the knife while inside. And he is still held on to his dog. Why he's still holding on to the dog, I don't know. I think that he could have released the dog, and the dog would have done dog work and would have got a hold of her. But instead, he drags the dog back with him, and the dog goes for a hell of a ride. Of course, they pop her, but don't pay attention to her. Pay attention to the other officer wearing all black. So he's right here. The officer with the 12 gauge, less lethal, is fallen, and he's right here. You can see his shotgun. Here's his leg and his foot. Here's his arm, torso. This deputy here, or this officer here, has fallen backwards into the wall, and he's about to spill over the top of this deputy here. And he holds that kind of weird vertical position for a more extended period of time. And his facial, that's a pretty good freeze frame with his facial expression here. So I'd imagine that as he has fallen backwards and he is hearing gunfire, it's possible that he is concerned about swinging his legs over this side because he's afraid his legs might get shot. So he's trying to minimize his chances of being hit here. And that's why he's kind of held this weird, awkward kind of position. Also take notice of this right here. This appears to be a bullet hole in the wall. We'll get to this here in a second. The officer with the dog, pay attention to him now. He starts to kick at her. You'll see him start kicking at her, and then when shots start getting fired, he retracts that leg real quick.
I got stabbed.
Now pay attention to the canine now, the dog. The dog's being the dog. The dog's Blue Falcon right now. He's biting. It looks like he's biting this deputy right here. And you see him have to smack the dog to make him quit.
Anybody hurt?
It's not funny, but it's kind of funny.
I got stabbed.
I bet that guy's like, God dang, this woman just came after us with this knife, and now this dog, the police dog's biting me, and I'm the police.
Anybody hurt? Anybody hurt? Anybody hurt? Anybody hit? I got stabbed.
All right, so that wall that I pointed out, as they right here, you can see that there's nothing on this wall. It's clean. There's no bullet holes in it.
Anybody hurt? Anybody hit? I got stabbed.
But now there is. Up here on the wall, you'll see a bullet hole up here. Bullet hole's right there now. And when I look at the other angles,
15 MC2, we're gonna make Andrew.
Miss Lee, can you hear me?
I don't immediately see anything on this wall prior to making entry.
Watch the dog!
And I can't see anything on this wall after the shooting. And we can't see very clearly with the shakiness this wall over here where I did point out the bullet hole. But there's a hole there. And I'm sure that there's probably a hole or two right here around this frame. We just can't see it from this angle.
Get the ambulance! Get the ambulance!
So like I said, although you can't see it because of the shakiness of the camera, it's, in my opinion, it's inevitable that there's a hole or two there that exists. All right. So kind of backtracking some, the positioning in the hallway. You need to pick one side and stick with it. This being on each side of the door thing does not work. It is a bad idea. Because when things rapidly evolve and it ends up coming back out into the hallway, the situation for crossfire is ripe. See how close this officer is to this wall? That hole was virtually within the shadow area where he's at. Just a little bit more to the left, it could have hit him in the femoral artery. I'm not going to be able to freeze it just right. But it could have hit him in that femoral artery. Could have hit him in the pelvic region somewhere. Could have hit him in the dick. This was a bad crossfire situation. And the officers, from this camera's perspective, recognized it, and they moved the fuck out of the way. They move and get off the X. Well, hold on. Alright, so that right there, I just now noticed that. This right here might be from a bullet. So that's a possibility. That right there. So I didn't see anything beforehand. So we got this little thing on the wall right here. So let's go back before they go in, see if we see anything.
Goes on again?
Nope. Virgin wall. Yep, nothing there. So that means that was a bullet mark right there. The potential for one of these deputies to be shot by another deputy was pretty high. And they're lucky none of them got hit. Choose one side. Don't be on two sides. It's just ripe for disaster. There are going to be misses in gunfights. This is not me saying that it's acceptable. It's not me saying it is what it is. Just know that there are going to be misses in gunfights. Although the training regimen is you are accountable for every round you fire, and you take firearms training to minimize those chances, but the reality of the matter is, under these stressful, tense, rapidly evolving conditions, coupled with a lack of good, steady, intense, and regular firearms training, the chances of misses occurring exist. And can be higher in some areas and lower than in others. So when you think about firearms training, like very, very basic firearms training, you start off on the range. You're generally standing in one spot, learning those fundamentals. Then once you've learned some of those fundamentals on your draw step process and going through your malfunction clearing, stuff like that. Then you can start interjecting a little bit of movement while you're there. Go taking cover, stuff like that. And that's where most of the firearms training stays at for governmental entities. It doesn't interject a whole lot of movement. And it sure as hell doesn't interject a lot of movement of multiple shooters, where one could be forward of the other, and doesn't encompass an actual true 360-degree training environment. It's just a 180-degree training environment. The 180 environment firearms training range is needed to get the fundamentals down, but it has to go beyond that. You have to eventually make it 360 with live guns, and then work in force-on-force scenarios using marking cartridges, doing reality-based scenarios. And this has to be on a schedule of some sort, where it is done at certain intervals. Otherwise, the skills will diminish. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of funding for agencies to be able to do that. When an officer gets hired, they go through the academy. And in the academy, there is a block of instruction for firearms. Now, it may vary from state to state on how long they do this and to what intensity they do it. But generally, there's going to be more than one day. It's going to be a multi-day process. And that's all that officer is going to do for that block of instruction. It could be a whole week-long event. It could be half a week. But whatever that time frame is involved in it is, that's all they're doing. They're not doing anything else. Now, they might, of course, in the morning wake up, do PT and formation bullshit. But once they get to class, that's it. That's all they do. They're not doing other bullshit. So they're able to devote their time and their energy into this. They're able to be 100% committed when they're at the academy. They're not having to worry about, well, I got to get home at the end of the shift. Generally, at the academy, you live there at the academy, and you only get to go home on the weekends. So you're 100%, well, you should be 100% committed to it, but the conditions for you to be 100% committed into this training are there. Now, do some people still struggle to pass when there's all this intense one-on-one instruction going on? Yeah, there's some people who barely pass because they don't fully apply themselves. But the conditions for you to be 100% committed to it are there. There is no, well, we only got an hour today, guys. That's how much we can do. We got to get you back on the road. Or, all right, it's in the shift. Let's make this quick. We'll go home. During this time frame, they can fire hundreds, if not low thousands of rounds. A couple thousand rounds here or there for, different calibers per officer. If not, then it's high hundreds. Multiple repetitions. Several hours. That is the only time for the majority of the police that they will ever receive that level of training with firearms. Their agency can never, let me back that up. Their agency is not likely to ever be able to replicate that level of training. Once they get back from the academy and they start working, their agency is most likely not ever going to be able to have them assigned to 4 days of just firearms training, and they be able to fire upwards of 1,000 to 2,000 rounds between, pistol, rifle, shotgun, and then be fully committed to it for those 3 days. They don't have to do anything else. They ain't got to go half a day of training and then the other day go to calls, work the road. It's just not very likely the agency will be able to replicate those conditions. So realistically, for a lot of police officers, the only real good firearms training they get is at the academy. And they'll barely ever get to replicate that stuff again. Now, they will, from time to time, have qualification with their guns. And this may vary from agency to agency. It may be once a year, twice a year. Some of them get to do it 4 times a year. But qualification is not training. You just fire X amount of rounds from your gun at varying distances with dominant hand, non-dominant hand, and you throw in a couple reloads here and there and go from standing and kneeling at those different distances. It's just a qualification. It's not training. There may be some block of instruction for in-service training for handguns. And then later on there may be some for rifle and then for shotgun. Very rarely is all that stuff tied together and put on for a multi-day event. If there is going to be some in-service firearms training, then for some places it may be set up to where they come in and they do some of this stuff at the beginning of their shift, and then the instructor, if they're in-house, is pressured by admin to make it quick so they can get back on the road and take calls. Or they do it at the end of shift, and then they're quick to want to get it done early so the guys can get home. Sometimes there's some corner cutting that goes on. But what I'm getting at is they'll never, hardly ever, be able to replicate what they've done at the academy. And so what that will mean is their skills will diminish over time. If at the end of their training at the academy, they were able to put all their rounds in the space of a $50, then they will unlikely be able to do that at the 9-month mark after training. Because skills are perishable. They diminish over time if you do not get to practice them. So they could go from getting out of the academy, making a grouping within the size of a $50, and then several months go by, and if they go to shoot again, their grouping may spread out some, and now it's about the size of a softball. If you've ever learned how to tie knots, like a necktie, if you ever learned how to tie a necktie and you had to watch YouTube to figure out how to do it, then if you've never repeated that on a regular basis after that, practice it some, chances are when the next time came up for you to tie a necktie, you probably forgot how to do it, because skills will diminish over time unless you keep up practice. And the agencies just don't have the money to do the type of practice that needs to be done. They can't afford all the extra ammo. They can't afford all the extra overtime for the officer to be able to do this after shift or before shift or on their off day. They can't afford the overtime for officers to come in and cover shifts while other officers do this stuff. They can only afford to do the bare minimum qualifications once, twice, 3, 4 times a year. They can only afford to do the basic minimum in-service training that comes however often. They can't afford to do extra. They can't afford to give each officer 1,000 rounds a year for them to be able to practice on their own here and there. And even if they did provide that ammo for them to go practice on their own here and there, there's a lot of officers who just simply would not do that because they're not gun people and they are not in it. They are not committed to the martial art. They do not have the mindset. They are the mindset that nothing's gonna happen. Or they could be of the mindset, I'm good. I passed the academy. Or they just simply don't give a shit. They're not gun people. And that's another thing I don't think that a lot of people realize. Not all cops are gun people. There's a lot of cops who the only reason why they carry a gun or even have a gun is because it's a condition of their employment and their employer gave it to them. If it weren't for that, they wouldn't have a gun. There's cops who don't carry their gun off duty. And they take people to jail and they piss people off. There are people who get put in jail for a long period of time who hold a grudge. Right now, there is a war on police. And there's still cops who do not carry off duty. I guarantee you that there is a number of cops out there who, if you gave them the choice to be able to go to work without even carrying a gun on them, I guarantee you there's a number of cops out there who would take you up on that offer. Like, all right, I ain't gonna wear it. And they would. They would take it off and not put it on. They would be perfectly fine and content with being like the British police. You'd be surprised about how many people are cops who should not be the cops. But misses are inevitable within gunfights for those reasons that I mentioned. Like I said, they're not excuses. It's not to say, hey, it is what it is. It's just an explanation of this is how this stuff occurs. And it realistically just goes back to training and practice. You've got to be practicing your skills. You've got to keep your skills sharpened. If not, you're going to get dull. And you're not going to be good.
I'm Sam 2, we're going to make Andrew.
Miss Lee, can you hear me?
Show me your hands. Where you at? Where you at? Back bedroom.
The apartment, so there's a way to get in. Make a hole. Make a hole. Make a hole. Make a hole. Watch the dog.
Not the biggest fan of how they're standing in the doorway here. I've never been a fan of standing in the doorway. Doorways are fatal funnels. You don't want to stay in a doorway. You want to, if you're going to move in, move in. Like, go in and dominate that space. Do not hang out in the doorway. Bad shit happens in doorways. This officer recovers pretty well. And then gets on top of her and starts to dominate her and gain control over her.
Get the ambulance! Get the ambulance! Get that
They get her, rip her down the hallway here some. Take control of the knife, which he still has a hold of.
Get ambulance! Watch out!
And then that's it. That's all we get to see. We don't get to see any of the medical care that is rendered to her, or any of the medical care that's rendered to the injured officer. So that brings up the topic of medicine, or pre-hospital medical care. We did see, might have been from this angle.
Make a hole! Make a hole! Make a hole! Watch the dog!
Well, I thought I saw a tourniquet on someone, but maybe I'm wrong. Here we go. So he had the tourniquet. And it's hard to see the other ones, but he does have a tourniquet on him. Now, talking about medical gear, you have to have the medical gear on you. And their environment where they're at right now is a great example of why it's important to have medical gear on you. I don't know what floor they're on. I can guarantee you they're not on the first floor. Because anytime you have to go on a call and go somewhere to a building that's multi-story, it's never on the fucking first floor. Like, it's always several floors up. And if it's one of those buildings where the builders and the designers intentionally built the building short enough to avoid having to be statutory required to put an elevator in, you've been guaranteed it's going to be on that top damn floor, and you're going to have to walk up those damn stairs to get to where you need to go. That's inevitable. We see on the wall, it says, looks like it's in the 50s, says like 56 something. So I don't know what all that means as far as what floor they're on, but in my experience, you never have the luxury of being on the first floor. So that could be several stories up for all I know. I just don't know that for sure. A lot of officers, if their agency gives them medical equipment, or they've gone out and got some of it, or they got maybe some of it as a gift for Christmas or a birthday or something like that, there's quite a few officers who will just leave their medical gear in the car, and they'll have the mindset of, well, I got a tourniquet. If I need, it's in the car if I need it. Well, in this context right here, where they're in this multi-story structure and they're several stories up away from their car, and their car could be parked a block down, that's not going to work at all. You have to carry a tourniquet on you, just like this officer is. And this tourniquet that he has, it don't take up a whole lot of room. It takes up very minimal amount of room. And when we're talking about being minimalistic, if all you carry is a tourniquet, well, I'm fine with that. I wish you would carry more, but at least you're carrying something. You can get a medical ankle holster to carry some medical gear in. And if you already wear an ankle holster with a gun, you can very easily carry a medical ankle holster. And it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. It doesn't print a whole lot. If you have a uniform where you have cargo pants, you could very easily put some medical stuff in a cargo pocket. If you wear an outer vest with pouches on it, you can very, very easily put medical gear on the front of it. But you have to have medical gear on. You cannot have this mindset that if you have it in the car, then it's good. Because it's not. If you can't get to your car in time, or if your car gets stolen or set on fire, or you're pinned down by gunfire, your car might as well be parked in China, because you can't get to it. On top of having the medical gear, you need to have the training to go along with it. Just the same as it is important for a person to have firearms training when they're issued a gun or going to be carrying a gun, it's also important that if you're going to have medical gear, you need to know how to use it. At a bare minimum, a lot of agencies and companies will provide CPR, AED, first aid training for their personnel. Although this training and information is good to have, it is not necessarily suited for trauma care, especially gunshot wounds. So you'll need some more specialized, focused training when it comes to things like that. And the basic American Heart, CPR 80, first aid class is not going to fit that bill. EMS response times can be long. It can take up to 8 minutes for an ambulance to respond to a location. And where they're at, if it takes the ambulance 8 minutes to even get to the property, well, how much longer is it going to take for them to grab their gear and the stretcher and go get on the elevator and get to where you're at? How much time is going to be added when they have the stage down the street until they're told it's safe to approach? And that delay in communication where you have to tell your dispatcher, hey, scene's clear, tell the medics they can come up. And then your dispatcher has to call the ambulance dispatchers, tell them. And then the ambulance dispatcher has to get on the radio and tell the ambulance that it's clear to come up. That can be a lot of time involved. And if you're shot in the femoral artery and you don't have a tourniquet on you and you haven't carried any medical gear, you can bleed to death in 90 seconds. 90 seconds. You can bleed out. So if it takes an ambulance 8 minutes to get there, you're 4 times dead. There's no bringing you back if you bleed out and it takes them that long to get there. You have to carry the medical gear on you, and you have to have the knowledge on how to use it. Not really much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.